In October 1979, 4 people took photographs inside a small hotel in the south of France. 2 weeks later, when the film came back from the lab, every picture from their holiday was there. The roads, the towns, the beaches in Spain. Every picture except the ones from that hotel. Those weren't blurry, they weren't damaged. They were simply missing from the middle of the roll. And when the couples checked the negatives, the frames weren't even there. The photos taken before the hotel and the photos taken after sat side by side on the film strip, as if that night had been cut out of the world. And when they drove back to find the hotel itself, it was gone. No building, no foundation, no record that it ever existed. This is a documented case. The witnesses told the same story for the rest of their lives, and some of Britain's most respected paranormal investigators spent decades trying to explain it. They never could. This is the story of the hotel that never existed. It's October 1979, and 2 married couples from England are driving through southern France on their way to a holiday in Spain. Jeff and Pauline Simpson and their friends Len and Cynthia Gisby. Ordinary, sensible, middle-aged people. The kind of witnesses investigators dream about and skeptics hate. By evening, they're tired, so they decide to stop for the night near a town called Montélimar. They find a modern motel just off the road. Bright lights, clean rooms, but it's full. The staff tell them there's another place further down the road, so they keep driving. And this is where the world quietly starts to change. The wide modern road narrows, then turns to cobblestone. Old stone buildings rise on both sides, and on the walls they notice posters. Advertisements for a circus, printed in a style nobody had used for decades. The couples think it's charming, a quaint French village frozen in time. They have no idea how right they are. Then they see it. A long, low stone building with warm light in the windows. An inn, a place to sleep. Inside, everything is slightly wrong. Not frightening, just wrong. The windows have no glass, only heavy wooden shutters. There are no telephones in the rooms, no elevator, and no proper locks on the doors. Just simple wooden catches. The beds have no pillows, and the sheets are heavy and coarse, like something from another century. But they're exhausted, so nobody asks questions. Over dinner, they notice the other guests' clothes look strangely dated, and at one point they see a man who appears to be a police officer. Except his uniform, with its cape and old boots, looks nothing like the French police of 1979. Maybe it's a costume, they think. Maybe rural France is just like this. They sleep. In the morning, sunlight comes through the shutters and everything feels normal again. The wives take photographs of the rooms, and the husbands go to pay the bill. And here's the first real crack in reality. The bill is almost nothing. So cheap they assume the manager has made a mistake. He hasn't. And he takes their modern money without blinking. They drive away laughing about the strange little inn, and they agree on one thing. On the way home, they'll stay there again. That decision is the only reason we know this story. 2 weeks pass. The holiday ends, and the couples drive north through France toward home. They reach Montélimar, find the same modern motel, the same road, the same turn. The cobbled street is there. The old buildings are there. The circus posters are still on the walls. But the hotel is gone. Not closed, not demolished, gone, as if nothing had ever stood there. They drive the road 3 times, checking every building. They ask locals about the old inn, and people look at them strangely. There is no inn, they're told. There never was. Confused, almost embarrassed, they give up and drive home to England. Because there's still one thing that can prove they aren't losing their minds. The photographs. Back home, they develop their film. The holiday pictures come out fine. Spain, the beaches, the drive. Everything except the hotel. And this is the detail that has kept researchers awake for 40 years. Film is one continuous physical strip. If a photo fails, you get a dark frame, a ruined negative, something. But on their negatives, the hotel pictures simply aren't there. No blank frames, no damage. The pictures taken before the hotel and after the hotel sit directly next to each other, as if the camera itself had forgotten that night. Two couples, two separate cameras, the same impossible result. For 3 years, they told almost no one. Then, in 1982, their story was published, and everything changed. The case became famous, television covered it, and in 1995, it was featured on the British documentary series Strange But True. One of Britain's most respected paranormal investigators, Jenny Randles, examined the case personally. And Randles is not a believer looking for ghosts. She's known for tearing weak cases apart. And this is where the story gets truly strange. Because Randles found problems. If the couples had really slipped backward in time, why did nobody at the hotel react to their car? A 1970s vehicle parked outside a building with no electricity? Why did nobody stare at their modern clothes? Why did the manager accept 1979 money? Skeptics say those holes prove it was a hoax. But think about that for a moment. If 4 people invented this story, why would they leave holes in it? A liar polishes the details. These couples just kept repeating the same account year after year without ever fixing the parts that made no sense. In 1985, Jeff Simpson gave investigators an answer that never changed. You tell us what the answer is. We only know what happened. They gained almost nothing from the story. No fortune, no fame worth having. Just decades of strangers calling them liars, and a night that no one on earth can explain. Here's what makes this case genuinely disturbing. It isn't the only one. In Liverpool, England, there's a busy shopping street called Bold Street. Since the 1990s, multiple people, strangers in different years, have reported the same experience there. They're walking down the modern street when, between one step and the next, everything changes. The shops become old, the road turns to cobblestone, and the people around them are dressed for the 1940s, the 50s, the 60s. One of the witnesses was an off-duty police officer, a trained observer. And seconds later, sometimes after walking into a shop that shouldn't exist, the modern world snaps back. And this pattern goes back much further than Liverpool. In 1901, 2 English academics, Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, were walking the gardens of Versailles in France when they began passing people in 18th century clothing. Figures that seemed strangely flat, a landscape that felt lifeless, like a scene, not a place. They spent the rest of their lives investigating what they saw, and it became one of the most famous paranormal cases in history. 3 cases, 3 countries, nearly a century apart. Witnesses who never met, all describing the same thing. Because here's the final piece. Researchers who collect these reports have noticed something buried in the testimonies, details the witnesses mention almost in passing. They describe the world going quiet. Sounds become muffled, like hearing everything through water. The light turns flat and lifeless, and colors lose their depth. And a heavy feeling settles over them. Unease, dread, some describe it as sadness with no reason at all. People who have never heard of each other in different countries and different decades, describing the same wrongness, the same silence, the same dead light. So ask yourself, if it's a hoax, who coordinated it? If it's imagination, why is it always the same imagination? And if it's real, then somewhere out there are places that only exist sometimes. Buildings that open their doors for one night, and then close them forever. Everything you've heard so far comes from documented accounts. Real witnesses, real investigations, real names. But cases like these leave shadows, and in those shadows, legends grow. So to be clear, what comes next is folklore. No police report, no witness on record. Just a story. the kind told at truck stops along lonely American highways. They say there's a motel that only appears in the rain, a neon sign glowing on a stretch of road where no building stood the day before. Drivers whose cars die on empty highways in a storm always seem to find it. An old manager, one room left, and a short list of rules. Never open the curtains after a certain hour. Never answer a knock that calls you by name. And never leave until the rain has completely stopped. They say the parking lot fills at night, not with cars, but with people standing motionless in the storm, wearing the faces of the dead. And they say the motel always lets you leave in the morning. But the question the legend asks is simpler and much worse. Does everyone who leaves, leave as themselves? It's just a story, probably. But then again, in 1979, 4 people checked into a hotel that doesn't exist, and the only evidence was cut out of a strip of film. So the next time you're driving at night and you find a place that isn't on your map, a hotel that looks a little too old, a little too cheap, a little too quiet, take a photograph, because if that photo develops, you were lucky. And if it doesn't, no one will ever believe you. Have you ever been somewhere you could never find again? A shop, a road, a building that vanished? Tell me in the comments. Because after reading thousands of these stories, I'm no longer sure the world stays still when we're not looking. Sleep well.